Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Proof Ponders. As always, we've got a very special guest joined with us today. It is Shinymark. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Just got done with some lessons. A little bit of a school break now, right now, so you're definitely gonna be seeing a little bit more from me for sure.
I'm never going to complain about that. I always love seeing that top tier Pikachu gameplay because there's no other Pikachus.
Broken.
There's no other
Yeah.
Pikachus total, but especially that do it like you. We'll get to that more in the middle of the interview, but let's just start off. I want to talk about your 2024 results, and this is going to be a fairly brief segment because there
Yeah.
aren't too
There's
many.
like two events.
There's two. One's good, one's bad. So let's start
Horrible.
with the bad. Let's start off with Comicpalooza. What did you learn from the event?
Yeah. That was honestly one of the events I probably went in the most cocky, I guess you could say. Because I was having a really good streak of events. Like I won Diamond Dust. I had won like 10 or 11 tournaments online in a row. Like I was beating Sonics. I was beating everyone. But I also was really busy with school. Like I was pretty much for those tournaments just preparing the day of. So for Comic Palooza, I was like, oh, I'm doing just fine. Let me just go to this tournament, 1 day tournament, not like go comfy at all. Like the TOs definitely helped out with hotel rooms and stuff. But was definitely not planned. I definitely didn't prepare. The big mistake because first off, Brandon played the best that any Shoto has ever done against me by far. Like even if I didn't prep, I'm probably the best Pikachu by far in that matchup, and I played probably over 40 sets between like Jazo and Vendetta, and I think between the two of them versus me, the record is like 40-2 or something crazy like that. It's really good in my favor.
Really
And
good.
then Bwendon was really on his stuff. So um, after the crowd was congratulating him, I told him, dude, you played out of your mind. That was amazing. But then I was feeling well. I was like, oh, I can still do it. But then on the loser set, I definitely still didn't prepare. I didn't even care to check who my match was. And it was Poogie, who honestly I was beating for the most part of the match. But then again, I got cocky, and the crowd was getting to me. The Texas crowd was very, very, very loud, to the point that they were very near me, behind the seat I was. And some people even touched me like physically, and I was like, it was game five, so I really couldn't say much
Yeah.
to like stop it. But I learned from that, first off, not to be cocky, second, to prepare, because literally, if you see any of my offline results of 2023, I knew that I have very few opportunities, so I always try to prep, even for COINBOX, to make the most out of these opportunities. And I just didn't for this tournament, so you could tell that was a big mistake for me. So I'm definitely taking initiative on that again. And lastly, to be more prepared for crowds, just tell
Yeah.
the TO, like, if I'm playing someone locally, tell them to back off, tell them to give me my space, and of course, bring a better pair of headphones, because I tried bringing the iconic ones that I broke against the SkyJ set. I don't know if you remember that.
No, we did.
Uh, they do not have noise canceling anymore. They're broken.
Oh.
So I'm getting some new ones for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the double-ended swords of having like a grassroots event is you get
Yeah,
that really close connection with the community, but it's
of
like a
course.
really close connection.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
no, the people over there were incredibly nice to me, especially the hosts, the people that were driving us around. We had a few like bad experiences, but that's not
Exactly.
because of them. It's because of the state, like the
Yeah, a
laws and
couple
stuff.
bad apples.
Yeah, yeah,
Tough
yeah. But
apples.
most people were really, really nice. But in terms of competing against their local heroes, I guess you definitely have to be careful with that. You
Yeah.
definitely want to be as well prepared, and just not have anything unfortunate happen. Which for me, fortunately, the 3 years that I've been competing in the U.S., nothing unfortunate like that has ever happened. But first time's always a learning experience. I'm gonna take that for the rest of my career, of course.
Yeah, like that's not really something that you're gonna have to deal with in any other context. And at least it was just at Comicpalooza. Like I think that event
Yeah,
was only a B tier. It's a small one, and honestly, straight up, I think that's one of the best things that could happen in a
yeah,
competitive person's career. Just kind of getting knocked on their understanding, like, okay, I'm really good, but so is everyone else. This game's been out for 6 years.
of
People
course. Yeah.
adapt, and I mean, you're clearly very good because let's talk about the other results of 2024. That is going to be Diamond Dust, which you won flawlessly. How did you feel about that
Yeah.
event?
Honestly, first off, I would just want to conclude with mixing both Comic Palooza and Diamond Dust. Going into both of these events, I feel like I've definitely matured a lot as a person. Because after I lost on Comic Palooza, I think the only thing that got to me was people being, I don't know. I don't know if I can curse. Can I curse?
Yeah, whatever. I'll censor it.
Okay, sure. Well, people were on me on Twitter for like the Poogie set and just stuff like that, and I was like, I don't really mind that. Like, it's definitely out of place, but I don't know you guys. I lost honestly 33rd at a B tier. Okay, that happens for sure, but I know it doesn't represent how good I am. I know I didn't prepare my best, and know it was in like bad conditions. No Johns at the end of the day, but of course I'll prepare more for the next time. And same for Diamond Dust, honestly. I won that pretty convincingly, honestly, over top 10 players in the world. And honestly, after I won the event, I was of course happy, but I like didn't super pop off. I feel like it was due time, just from seeing my own level of play. I was like, okay, I've definitely been players about as good as this or better than them in past tournaments. So why can I not just win today? And I won. I was like, let's go, and that's it. I just went home really happy, and that's all.
Yeah, it's definitely a different feeling when you expect to win, and I
Yeah,
I
yeah.
expect you to win like 1,000% he's gonna win, but it did not shock me at all when you got the one, even with names like Shattuck, Onan, MK Leo, Big Boss, who you all beat. By the way, that's
Yeah.
just I'll remember that they're there. Which of those wins do you think was the hardest at that event?
Um, I think the most intimidating one is probably Shattuck, just due to the level of play that he is always playing in. But honestly, player specific, I think it's always Big Boss. I think Big Boss by far is the best Rob in the matchup that I've played. I have not played Samba to say, but Big Boss comparatively always has felt like the hardest Rob I've played. And I think we've had like over 6 sets. I think now in this year I definitely tied it up or maybe into my favor. But the first few times that we played, he kind of destroyed me. So, been happy to have like a very convincing record against him recently for sure.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot better overall. I just looked up; it is 6-4 in your favor.
Oh, okay, nice.
So basically, not even a hard matchup. Uh, and then I guess, do you have anything finally you want to say about Diamond Dust before we move on to the next topic?
For Diamond Dust, again, it was kind of a unplanned event for me. Like pretty much like 2 weeks beforehand, I was like talking with Hunter from Guatemala, who also came with me to the tournament, and he was like, "Shinymark, we should go. The TOs really want us to go, and they're gonna help us out." I was like, dude, this is like really near. Should I? And then I was like, okay, sure. I've been busy with school. I haven't gone to anything the rest of the year. Let me try, And it seems like it's gonna be like a B plus or A tier, so it's gonna be good training at least.
Yeah.
And honestly, again, I just prepped for the matches that I had. Mainly, I prepped for Onan indirectly because I was practicing with Hunter. He's pretty much my practice partner, so probably my most experienced matchup. And for the other guys, I just did the little bit of studying that I always do, and it paid off. So just as an anecdote, you guys have to prepare for tournaments for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I'm someone that I will never, ever, ever practice, but you should. That's like, as a bad player, I don't practice. Like, obviously, it's
Oh,
something, especially when you're doing like the combos that you're doing with Pikachu specifically. Like, you gotta
that's
be.
one thing I wanted to add actually from Comicpalooza. I've always been, and this is kind of dumb. Like I guess it's not dumb, but I've always taken pride in being like a player that doesn't play the game as much but studies a ton. I was talking to you about it before we started. I just enjoy that part of the analytical portion of the game a ton, of like VOD reviewing, taking notes, and honestly, playing by itself is not super appealing to me because I just played unhealthy amounts of time during Smash 4, to the point where I feel like my execution is very good, and I think you can tell in my combos I barely ever drop them. But I do think that something a little more abstract, like game sense, is something that you need to be in shape and be playing the game actively to really have down. And that's something I didn't really have into Comicpalooza. I barely warmed up, if at all. The weeks prior, like I said, I was like in the exam, so I barely had time to prepare and play at all. So yeah, I think I've been balancing that because I call it the improvement triangle. You pretty much have to play, you have to take notes, and you have to VOD review. I always was a lot more extreme with VOD reviewing and note taking, but now I'm balancing the three of them pretty well, like 33% of all of them, I guess, of my
Yeah,
time.
I mean, sometimes you're just not in the mindset to play Smash at that high
Yeah,
level. Like,
yeah,
you
yeah.
gotta be ready for it. So definitely makes
Mm-hmm.
sense that you need that research. And I don't know if you have a specific tournament in mind that's like your favorite one, not including Diamond does
Diamond Dust.
just from 2023 to talk about because you had a couple good events there as well.
Yeah. I think the most iconic ones were probably Collision. It wasn't my best placing at all, but it was the first time Leo didn't make a top 8 outside of an invitation, I think. So
Yeah, it was crazy.
that was huge for a lot of people. And honestly, when I came back to Guatemala, there were news about that, like in uh, the newspapers and stuff. Not so much because I got top 8, but literally only because I beat Leo, you know. So I think that was definitely a pretty good highlight for me. Nowadays, thinking about it, it's like, okay, that was definitely like a good breakout point for me to like realize like, oh, I'm playing to the discipline of these top players, you know. Nowadays, I think I am a lot more confident against Leo, like more often than not. Especially like the matchups that we can tell now, like Pikachu definitely beats Joker, definitely beats Violet, definitely beats Aegis slightly, you know. So definitely a lot more confident in that. And then the other two ones I'd say is my first top 8 at a major was Smash Factor in 2022. That was a good win, and also no Pikachu had been Siski before or any top semis to that point. So I did my studying and it worked, and I was like, oh, I'm good at studying, cool. And then lastly, probably Delfino Masa, which was at that point my best placing so far, which I got third at, beating Gluttony, SkyJ, and a few other top players.
Yeah, those were all super slow results. I remember that collision run to this day, like that win over
Yeah,
MK Leo. Such a good
it
for
was a
Pikachu
good
players
losers
though.
run as well.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it was like it was 7 in a row, which is
Something like
crazy
that,
a
yeah.
lot. Next one that I want to ask you, even though you haven't been able to travel too much for Smash, you've been to every major region in NA at least. You've been to Canada, you've
Yeah.
been to America, you've been to Mexico. Do you think there's any big playstyle differences between those regions?
Mm, honestly, I guess I don't try to think about that too much. But you can probably tell, like, um, I wouldn't say like there's anything concrete because people like individual people by themselves are very very different just by their
Yeah.
playstyles and the way that they think about the game, the way that they learn the game. Maybe in a certain moment they're like thinking about something different that they usually do, you know. So generally I don't tell. I try to focus more on like what I'm doing as a player and then seeing how I can exploit the other player. But what I will say is like as I was coming up to being a top player, I guess like in 2022, I was like, oh, I'm probably so much better than everyone else here. But then I play like the round 3 of pools or something, and I almost lost. Like that just happens a lot because people are good, you know, in this game.
Mhm.
So I just say like, oh, people really want to win in this game. Uh, Outside of like, for example, Central America, where the level unfortunately is a little bit lower, you know, people are a lot more disciplined for sure, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like again, it is definitely a tough question to answer, especially like if you are going to be focused on yourself, which you definitely should be playing a character
Yeah,
like Pikachu. Like there's certain characters in this game, like I think Corn, for example, very very important to understand what your opponent's going to do.
yeah.
Pikachu, you need to be your no, like you need to play on point. Even if your opponent is your worst matchup or your best matchup, you just need to be playing well. And let's actually transition to talking about Pikachu because you have pioneered this character. Pikachu kind of had like two kind of lifespans throughout the game. There's the first with Esam, incredible character, did a
Of
bunch of
course.
really cool stuff. Aggression was out of the control. But now the character is completely different, and I still think people perceive Pikachu as that Esam style of character. So I kind of want
Yeah.
you to, like, in your own words, describe how you have revolutionized Pikachu.
So honestly, when I picked up Pikachu for the first time, it was like the end of Smash 4, so like 2018. I used to be a Ryu main, and at the end of Smash 4, I was realizing, oh, I'm really relying on people to make mistakes with Ryu rather than me having something to force them or something to fall back on a neutral. I just wanted to become an actual good player instead of having to rely on someone messing up, you know.
Yeah.
So I just lost faith in Ryu at that point. I was like, okay, let me pick up like neutral characters. Like, okay, Sheik is really fun. Oh, Biru Pikachu movement is really really fun. So I picked him up. I don't know if you were around for Smash 4, but no, okay. There
No.
was basically a movement tech called Biru where you changed your C stick to special. So pretty much every single time you held down the special button, so for example B, or for most players, what we did, we set one of the special triggers, one of the triggers to special. You held it down, and every time you moved the C stick, you would move one frame in that direction, like just raw movement, right, like a walk. And there were a lot of pretty close to frame perfect tech in that game. including perfect pivoting, which was for microspacing, and up throw thunder for Pikachu. So that's pretty much what made me fall in love with the character. It was like something so different and so precise with movement with the character, and it was necessary. So at the end of Smash 4, I was just learning the game like that. And then Ultimate came out. I picked up my favorite characters, being Pit and Pikachu. And then I realized, like, okay, there's really no reason for me to keep playing Pit if Pikachu is this much better, and I pretty much enjoy both of them the same. So I eventually did drop Pit. Eventually he came back when he got buffed, but I was like, Pikachu's
Just
so
not
much
worth it.
freaking better. Like, yeah, exactly. So the reason why I bring this up is every single moment that I played Pikachu in Smash 4 and Ultimate, I never really watched eSIM at all. Like, I pretty much only got guided by Captain L in Smash 4, just watching his VODs, and otherwise just like my raw learning my fundies, and just like seeing how I can make this character work. And I quickly realized, like, afterwards, we eventually did match up with Isam and like started talking and stuff. At like 2021, when I started doing a little bit better in online tournaments and started getting known. Um, but I was telling him, like, dude, you play Pikachu like you're Kazuya, and I feel like the attributes of this character are very counterintuitive for that. He's a very light character. He's a character with very low range. He's a character that his main approach options and openings are multi hits. So if you don't get clean hits, you're gonna trade, and that's gonna be bad for you. That's like one of the mid case scenarios. Worst case scenario, you just get outranged and lose. So that's kind of like why I developed a more passive, lame playstyle, I guess, if you want to say.
Wreck style, as we call it.
I guess so. Like a more, I base my gameplay a lot more around like Tweak and MKLeo 2020-ish gameplay, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Until eventually I gained like enough confidence, enough control, enough experience to know like why this worked and like know like when to slow the pace down and when the pace is slowed down enough to go in and call people out after I gain like some type of advantage in neutral, whether it be stage control, whether it be having a T-jolt set up, something like that. And yeah, that's pretty much how I learned it. And so far, it's only been getting me higher and higher up in the rankings, and just I haven't really felt the need to like stray too much away from it, other than specific matchups, which is just specific adjustments that I have to make, like timing out Game and Watch,
Yeah.
or like not using T-jolt against Bayonetta close range because of Witch Time, stuff like that.
Yeah, just small, like little intricacy things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the way that you describe that is honestly everything that I was looking for. Just Pikachu as a character, you're constantly forcing your opponent to the other side of the stage because your pressure is across the stage. You have T-Jolt, which is awesome. You have Quick Attack, which is literally your burst range of the entire stage.
Yeah.
And I think something that you're really good at, something that Sonics is also very good at, is you guys force the same interaction over and over and over again, because that's just how the character works. But you're capitalizing off the interaction. Okay, last time I
Yeah.
T-jolted and quick attacked at him, he just shielded. This time I'm gonna run up and grab. I'm gonna see what he does. You just do that over and over and over again, and then you have this character like Pikachu, where I got hit in the sky. I'm gonna side beat to the left, and then hang onto the stage for a little bit. 20 seconds are gone,
Yeah.
and now I know what to do. Like, it is just such a good way to control the tempo, and if you're able to slowly take that stage control like you are to do very, very well, then the character is just like frankly ridiculous. But I've seen some of your matchup charts, and I don't know if he's that ridiculous. So there's a couple of characters that I hard disagree with. Actually, there's only one that I hard disagree on, and I think it's Game Watch. I think that matchup is miserable, really, really bad for Pikachu. I think it's the only one that he hard loses. But I saw you put it as even, and I'm very curious about that.
Okay, so honestly, the public one, I think I know the one that you're talking about. That I have like 5 or 6 even matchups or something, and then the rest
Illusion.
is winning. That was more of a meme, because I don't know if you saw that, because I think Sonics at the time uploaded like a matchup chart, pretty much the same format. So I made sure to copy what the tier said and just make the same amount of characters even, and then the rest winning. So it was a meme at that point, but now it's not
Wow.
longer a meme. Because honestly, dude, I know it's been online. I really haven't had much of a chance to show myself against Game and Watch recently, but I have been becoming a lot better at that matchup, and specifically dividing the. There's a few flowcharts that I guess I don't want to give away to the public, but pretty much you can segment the matchup really, really well for Pikachu to dictate the tempo of the match at all times. Um, The only unfortunate part of the matchup is obviously you cannot T-ult, and he outranges you, and he gets a lot more per hit. Uh, but the fact is, you don't have a disadvantage state pretty much, which is the big appealing part of Game and Watch.
Yeah.
Game and Watch, surprisingly, does have quite the bad disadvantage state against Pikachu, with like quick attack with punishing key, you trapping landings and platforms, two framing the edge guards. Sometimes you can threaten Game and Watch to like go off stage and mash a B, out of panic, and you bait that out with Thunder. If he goes low off stage with Downer, you can follow him with Downer or Backer off stage and kill him super early. So you do have cheese in that aspect, actually. But I think probably the thing that matters the most in every single matchup in the game is neutral, how you're going to be able to managing neutral. And the fact is, Pikachu can just control the neutral and the speed, the risks that you're gonna take. And sure, maybe outside of like an air loop percent, you're not gonna get like that much damage per like true combo. But from advantage side, you might be able to get like, for example, you get an up tilt, you get an upper. Okay, Game watch this in juggle. He's gonna downer. Okay, now I get quick attack 1-2 upper into tech chase on a platform, for example. And then I get a like I read the tech chase, I get a downer upper. That's like another 30%. So just from that advantage state, I low key got like 50-60%. Now Game and Watch is at kill percent,
Yeah.
and that's pretty much how the matchup works. The only unfortunate part is you cannot take risks against that type of character, and there's a good amount of characters where you cannot take risks against. Um, Granted, you will have to take risks eventually because of that's how fighting games work. If you do not take risks and just decide to like fully infinitely retreat, you're gonna get cornered and you're gonna have to eventually interact. But the fact is, just the character being more mobile than Game & Watch, for example, just gives us a lot of freedom in neutral. And I think that's the appeal of Pikachu, and that's the reason why he doesn't really lose matchups, is he always has something over a character. Like, even if it's something perceivably, or like if people like see it like as a layer one thing, it seems like not as big of a deal. But in the long term, at top level, it's gonna become a big deal for sure.
And I think Pikachu is the best example, honestly, in the entire game of a character at the mid level bad, high level bad, top
Oh
level
yeah.
bad, super top level absolutely broken. One of the
The
best.
skill floor on that character is actually really brutal.
Yeah.
And actually, the thing that you said of like Isam being the pioneer of character, I think a lot of people intuitively try to play Pikachu like a very aggressive character. But then once they're getting better, they're like, I don't understand what's going on here. Like, I don't understand why I'm losing. I don't know how to deal with this character. I don't understand why you call, I don't know, Kazuya or Steve +1 or even for Steve, for example. And then I explained to them like pretty much like the entire theory behind my neutral. I break down the weaknesses of the character and how to patch those weaknesses up, and then the reasons why we just out reward pretty much every single character in the game eventually.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like we're not hating on Esan here. This is an Esan loving channel, but like when he was good, like super prominent, it was really early in the game, so people didn't really SDI out of Pikachu combos. So that's
That's
how you
true as
should play
well.
the character because his damage output was ridiculous. But nowadays he's more of a thousand cuts character, and
Pretty
people
much.
they just don't understand that. And obviously sometimes I'm gonna kill you at 30 off a grab because I upper bridge you, awesome.
Yeah.
But a majority of the time you're whittling him down. You're going for an edge guard, and especially in some bad matchups like the Game & Watch one, it can be really hard to do that, but it's not impossible because you don't have a disadvantage, because you don't get ledge trap, because you have the burst range being the entire stage. And
Yeah.
do you think Game & Watch is Pikachu's worst matchup?
Yeah, for sure. I think nowadays I'd probably call it -1 or even, and the only reason why I could justify it being even, again, as I told you, you can really get openings really safely, and honestly, timeout is an auto win condition if you do get the conditions for it. But otherwise, it's I think people perceive matchups in a different way until they're in top level, because for example, I think the way that you can enable the matchup to be playable with Pikachu is something very hard, something very different for Pikachu's traditional playstyle. It's not T-Jolt and to run behind Aerial. It's not just do Pikachu stuff. You cannot run up back air against Game Watch. It's not gonna happen. But that's low key a problem until like super top level. Where in super top level, if there's a tool, if there's a way to do it, then you should do it. That's how it should look like. And I think at super top level, the way that matchup should look like, even if it's awkward to do and if it's a little complicated to do, the fact is, once you enable that way of playing and like being hard to open up with Pikachu and having that auto win condition, the matchup definitely turns into a lot more of an even matchup, you know. So at that point, once you're in top level, you have no justification. It's just play well and try to win, you know.
Yeah, it's like certain matchups you just don't play them normally. Like I think another great one is Snake Game of Watch. The way Hurt plays
Yeah,
that matchup specifically, like when you look the way
of
he
course.
plays that matchup, it doesn't look that bad. Like you're constantly at
Yeah,
ranging Game Watch, you have way more damage, but it's just not the normal way that you play the character. So people are perceiving as, oh, that's a bad matchup because you don't have your normal
exactly.
tools.
But then I think the difference between a character like Pikachu and a character like Snake playing that matchup is that first off, Snake is not necessarily more mobile than Game & Watch, so
Yeah,
a
well,
lot
it's
of the
way
time,
more.
yeah. So once the appeal of Snake in that matchup is like him having sometimes more range and more appealingly the kill power, right?
Yeah.
If you just explode Game & Watch, then that's it.
Well, he just
But
takes every
that's
trade as well. Like he's gonna nair, I'm
exactly.
gonna up tilt him every time.
But that's you as a Snake relying on on Game and Watch to mess up,
Yeah,
right?
well, that is true.
Where Pikachu, and also if Game and Watch is right, eventually disadvantage state is gonna cut up to you as Snake
Yeah,
because he does have to suffer through the juggle. Does have to suffer through the edge guards. Not Pikachu. Pikachu can just decide to infinitely, you know, never commit against Game and Watch. Eventually get one small opening. Maybe it will be 20%, but then you can snowball it into another opening, into another advantage state, and then if you do get hit, as long as it's not like nair into a 60%, pretty much you can take the nair into upper, for example, at like 70.
yeah,
Go off stage, exit the juggle state. Be off stage, exit the edge guarding state and two frame state. Go
yeah.
under the stage, and now only you have to deal with ledge trapping, and he has to hard read you for it. You know, you have a bunch of mix-ups still. So I think in that aspect, that's the broken part about Pikachu. He just naturally skips a lot of aspects of disadvantage, so pretty much you can only hit him in neutral, and he has one of the best neutrals in the game. Or if you hard read him in a ledge on one of the quick attack mix-ups, you know?
I mean, that's part about the character I definitely appreciate, and it makes sense that you would get it as well because you realize the character is good. That's why the character
Yeah,
is good, and like a character like
ridiculous.
Pikachu can win every matchup. Like again, Snake Game Watch, that matchup is still miserable for Snake even when he's playing without the grenades.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
Pikachu Game Watch, even without T-Jolt, the character is just so good, and the other parts of Pikachu, it's not even like the moves in the kit or how you play the kit. It's just the fact that he skips such these important stages of the game. And as you like already said before, we'll move on because we're just hammering the point home, especially versus Game Watch, that up air. The fact that you just get to avoid it, that is a massive deal. I didn't even consider.
He's I think characters like this, for example, Sonic is another character that has a great disadvantage there. Um, I guess we are perceived to be prone to be cheesed. Also, Sheik, for example, because of like weight, you know, and like combo ability and stuff. But the fact that we cannot really get gimped, the fact that if we are in a juggle state, we don't necessarily explode immediately, the fact that we have mix-ups from the ledge makes it so you're a much more consistent character than your attributes may lead you to think you are, you know?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I'd actually be very curious to see like what the average stock life of Pikachu and Sonic and Sheik characters that are exploitable, but they don't get gimped and they don't really suffer the
There
disadvantage. Like, it's curious.
there was a stat in stat distribution for Diamond Dust. I think it was like a very small account, but I saw it because they tagged me, and I think they did something like that where my kill percent was like around 150, 160 as Pikachu, which is a lot more than you would think,
It's
honestly. And
crazy.
but also the time game count, or like sorry, the amount of time a game would take, for example. I think the highest in Diamond Dust were by far me and Shaddix, which were like over 4 minutes, and then everyone else's was like 3 minutes, and I think Leo's was the lowest, which was like 2 minutes or something.
Well, he was playing Roy. He was having a lot of fun that
Yeah,
event.
exactly.
I was running it down. Speaking of other good characters like Sonic, though, how good do you think Pikachu is? Where would you put him on a tier list, roughly, if you don't got him exactly?
I think right now there are like 3 to 4 kings of the game. Um, and I think from the way that I talk about the game, you can see that I value consistency and disadvantage a ton. Just because it brings you consistency. Like even if you mess up a neutral, you're not gonna just auto lose the game from that, you know. So I think that's great. But also having a good neutral and a good advantage to yourself is really important. So I think the 4 characters that balance this the best are Steve, Pikachu, Sonic, and Game and Watch, right?
Okay.
So
That's my top four.
yeah, exactly. So I think honestly, Pikachu is probably better than Sonic in Game and Watch in the long run. He's probably a little bit more flexible, but I think in practice you do not reach that level super often, right? Um, I think he can even be more versatile than Steve, for example. It's just that Steve's tools are immediately more rewarding, and you have to worry about a lot of like micro mix-ups against Steve, compared to Pika, where you do not worry about those micro mix-ups a lot, but Pikachu can just fully avoid those mix-ups from Steve and just like play to his game plan, get the chip damage, and run away, get the safe hits in.
I was absolutely
So
agree. I think in
I think
theory,
that's around the top four for sure.
yeah, in theory, I think Pikachu is the best character in the game. In
Could be
practice,
for sure.
though, is where he falls a lot. So I think the
Yeah,
the average for me is also going to be in that top four. I don't know if I would regard him above Sonic or Game Watch, but
yeah,
I could see it. Like
I totally understand. Yeah.
the character skipping state of the game is broken, and the only one that does that is Zero Suit, and she only does it a little bit. Next question.
I think she's so underrated. I think
Oh, okay,
it's
really
on.
quick. How good do you think CSS is?
Okay, so currently, since there's no representatives and we haven't seen her in the new meta, nor have we seen a representative like. Because I know that a lot of people always talk about like theory seriously. That was the same for Pikachu, theory, Sonic. Like what if a player with good fundies were to commit to just wanting to win? And we have seen it for me with Pikachu. We have seen it for Sonic's with Sonic. We have not seen it for Zero Suit. But I think in theory, she could be top 15 or top 20. I think she's quite ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like she's good. The obvious issue is yours is going to be her damage output, but those
Of course.
thousand cuts characters, I 1000% agree that if you have someone that wants to win bad enough, they'll win.
I think it's the
We'll
same
see
for
what,
Sheik.
yeah, for Sheik for sure. Well, Sheik at least she has the crazy damage too, unless you're bad. But Mars he'll save Zero Suit. He's on LG now.
I hope so, and I think Webb, for example, is the really good representative for Sheik. He probably just hasn't reached the peak of those like super top level players, but still, he's like top 25, top 20. So I think if we see a little more from him, you personally, I think Sheik could break into the top 10. I think that character's insanely crazy.
Yeah, I think you put Sheik really anywhere in a tier list, and it's not like I think Tweak had her in like top 3 or something, and Webb
Yeah,
that's a
something
that's
crazy.
a, that's
I
a,
think that's capped, but
not that
I
far.
understand where he's coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think, and Webb's a great player shadow as well. I think Webb's one of those players that right now he's hit like a small plateau because that just happens. Progress isn't linear.
Yeah,
But when he hits that peak, oh god, it's gonna be scary. Like
yeah,
I am deathly afraid of what's gonna happen there. And
of course.
he's been practicing. You can tell just by every tournament. Speaking of practice, I think the best practice that we honestly have right now in Smash Ultimate, is Matchbox. But people don't use that anymore. But COINBOX is a pretty
COINBOX.
good up and comer, and you are one of the kings of COINBOX. I think you have the third most one, and that's completely out of my ass. So
Yeah,
correct me if that's wrong.
yeah, it is
Third
true.
most. Do you think that's helped you become a better player? Straight.
Yeah, by far. Honestly, it's part of why I was able to monetize Smash, I guess. Just because I'm really consistent in it. So
Yeah.
sometimes I'm winning the tournament, sometimes I'm getting second, and usually worst case scenario, I'm getting third to fifth. And honestly, it's rare that I get below third. So first off, that helps me to travel and like maintain a lifestyle with Smash, plus like coaching and other tournaments. But second, I of course, we always want to win, but I always take every single tournament as a learning experience. Like sometimes I will enter random Wi-Fi tournaments if I don't have anything better to do, or I will play Elite Smash recently because I told you like I'm forcing myself to play the game a little bit more since I've always been more analytical, and I will take those small tournaments for learning experiences. Like sometimes Jazar might be there, the Dr. Mario, or sometimes I'll like find a random. Yesterday, I found a good ass Bowser Jr. on Elite Smash. We played for like 2 hours, and I learned a lot from that. So it's generally, uh, if you enter a tournament or just do something to play with the mindset of like, okay, if I win, cool, I earned it, and then if I lose, I'm gonna learn from that, and I'm actually gonna try to learn from that. Like take notes, see why this character specifically felt hard. Maybe VOD review even after. You're gonna learn a lot, and that's been the case for me with Wi-Fi tournaments for pretty much all my life because I'm in Guatemala. Like, uh, only until recently, Haunter is kind of itching the top level, worldwide, I guess. But otherwise, the region Central America in itself, only first off, we barely do have regionals where like all of Central America comes together, and even then, it's only like Jay, Haunter, more salsa, and a few others, that are kind of itching top level.
Yeah, it's tough when you're not from like basically one of the four, honestly two, America or Japan. You got lucky, Everywhere else, Mexico and Europe, it's a little better, and then everywhere else, it's definitely tough to beat.
Yeah, and I think that's also part of like why I became so analytical. I noticed like, okay, I'm not gonna be the type of player that is gonna get the chance to just like spam tournaments, spam practice with like top level players offline. So I was like, let me try to understand like from seeing these top players like what they're doing that's correct, right? And just like break down the game in segments and just slowly but surely improving them. And then Wi-Fi tournaments opened up, and they fortunately did allow Guatemala and Central America. I think they at first didn't want to. Uh, I think if I don't remember wrong, at like 2020 or 2022, I often lied about where I was staying on like the world. So I said I was from Mexico, but then they found out, oh, he's just always in Guatemala, but he never had any lag issues. Let us
Let him play.
yeah, let him play exactly. So now all of Central America is allowed. So you're welcome. But that's literally the way that I improved that game. You know.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. You're only gonna get as good as the people around you. At a certain point, you're just gonna hit a plateau. But with online, you have every single good player at your
Of course.
disposal. And that point you made earlier, I think is a really good. I think it was Apollo Kage who made the exact same point: is entering tournaments, especially Wi-Fi ones, not to win, but just to learn, to
Learn.
improve, to get better at the game. Like so many people, especially, and this, if you're a 1-2 or 2-2, you want to get better at the game. When you're going to a locals, that is practice. That is to get better. That is to play in a tournament setting. But people they're just
Yeah.
trying to win. They're stressed out. They're nervous, and I think it's just the wrong mindset to improve in the game. And I'm really glad you touched on that. It's also a really convenient segue to my favorite question that I always ask everyone: is what is the best way to get meaningful practice in Smash Ultimate?
Okay. Like I said earlier, I think the best way to balance it is inside of the game, or I guess uh, keeping it to direct progress of the game would be to balance playing, theory crafting, or note taking. You know, like analyzing frame data. Just like for example, if you do not know how to punish a certain move, you know, like I don't know, uh, like a wolf nair, you know, and then you see, oh, the frame data is -9 with Pikachu. I can definitely like nair out of shield, you know. Then do that, you know. Otherwise, if it's safer, you like know that oh, it's only safer if they do it perfectly and super low to the ground, so the timing is going to be consistent. So now you fish for parries, and now you do actually get the punish. Stuff like that, you know. You can really solve a lot of matchups just by theory crafting and taking notes on them, like breaking it down in frame data. And third, like VOD reviewing, right? So just balancing these three, depending on how much you do the others or you feel like you need doing the others, you know, um, is definitely the best way to directly improve inside of the game. Like for example, with me, again, like I said, for the longest time it was like 40% VOD review, 40% theory crafting, and then like 20 or even less playing. I really only played in tournaments, you know. Nowadays I'm definitely doing like 33, 33, 30, like something more balanced, you know. Um, so that's definitely inside of the game. And then otherwise, I think mentality is incredibly huge and definitely one of the things I'm most proud of recently of my improvement. I used to be such a sore loser, dude. I used to be so bad about losing. And honestly, like, I guess hate or like being mad at yourself can push you to like try to improve, definitely. But you should definitely recognize how to separate that during competition and outside of competition. You know, like use that hatred of Cloud to like just dissect the character and like find all the openings, find all the gimmicks that they're trying to cheese you with. And then once you're practicing, once you're actually in tournament, just try to apply that with discipline. You know, take it one step at a time. If you win, cool, you earned it. And if not, you're gonna learn from it, dude. That's pretty much all it breaks down to. And lastly, I want to say there's definitely a lot of. I've learned a lot recently, especially from Coach's Corner. I've been exercising in real life actually for the first time in like 5 years. I used to be a competitive swimmer actually before I completely dropped it for Smash. So I've been pretty out of shape since. Maybe I don't seem like it. I'm pretty skinny as a person, but I've definitely just I sit down a lot. So I've learned a lot of like sports theory, and obviously that applies to other stuff like esports theory, you know. And I've learned that there's a lot of junk thoughts that you have to get rid of completely. Like, is it really that important for you to like have like a broken Joker secondary? Like for me, I wanted to practice Joker, but no, like I'm not gonna use Joker in tournament, for example, right? Sure, putting like short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals is very, very helpful to like gauge your improvement. You know, like for sure you can be 10th in your PR, and you can probably aim to like 30, because that second and first are, I don't know, Samba and Jackal, and they are gonna be better than you for sure for a while. But if you can aim to that, you're gonna see improvement, and now your midterm goal is getting good enough to take games away from them, and then eventually take sets, and then eventually be better than them. So those type of goals are definitely really good, but you do not have to like hyperfixate on them. It's not like you're gonna get a the Pikachu's gonna get an attack boost if you become number one on the PR. You definitely the long term goal is always to improve on yourself only. It
Hmm.
doesn't matter if someone's doing better than you, if someone's improving faster than you. You should focus on like self improvement and just being constant about it. Because eventually, that person that's better than you is probably gonna slump. Life is gonna get to them. They're gonna plateau or something, and you're probably gonna keep improving because you should be improving organically. And I think that's the best way to approach Smash. I think a lot of people try to shortcut it by using gimmicks, by using brain-dead characters, which brain-dead characters are fine. Like that's why they're winning. Like someone like Game and Watch and Steve obviously are gonna be much easier than someone like Pikachu, but they're top picks. If you want to win, that's what you want to win. And there's nothing to say that you cannot play these characters brain dead when you need to play brain dead just because they abuse parts of the game, but be smart about the other aspects of the game that are pretty fundamental. So as long as you organically and consciously improve towards being a better player in the end of the day, you're gonna see improvement eventually.
Yeah, I think you hit pretty much every important point on the head. Just the right use of your energy in Smash, just
Yeah.
figuring out when you need to be practicing, when you're taking time for yourself, mental health, physical health, they're all going to be related to it. And I really like setting small goals that are feasible and on the way to your big goals. So in the end, I want to be the best player in the world. Well, you're not gonna. There's a lot of steps to get there to that point. So I think really important for you to put up. I've got two more questions for you before we hit the road. The
Go
first
ahead.
one is going to be: are there any players from your region that you want to give a shout out to?
Actually, I was gonna use Haunter as an example for the literal last thing I said of improving organically, because he was when he started popping off, I guess in Guatemala, he got to top three in Guatemala pretty damn quickly, honestly, with solo Ike, and honestly, yeah, like the 11 Guatemala, it's pretty feasible to get to that point pretty quickly. But then there was Grisam, which was a Pokemon trainer and Diddy player. He's mostly retired now. He's trying to return, but he just didn't like the meta the way it was going. But I definitely want him to come back, and if he does, I'm definitely willing to help him out. And then there's me, right? So Hunter eventually was like, okay, I'm gonna pick up Steve, and then he kept being top three for a while, until we started practicing a little bit. I was like, okay, I want to help you out. I know that you want to improve. I can tell that you want to be honestly like a better player, right? But Steve obviously brings out the worst in people sometimes, like they just bring out the worst minecarts known to man, the upload spam that is usually good. But I would tell him like, look, this might work against players that don't know the matchup or aren't paying as much attention or don't know how to deal with the gimmicks. But I'm gonna call you out. I'm gonna literally tell you you're being dumb for doing this. Don't fall into the Steve brain deadness. I'm gonna call you out for it, and I want you to be conscious of it. And that we didn't like play like every day, but we played pretty often, to the point where I got him to be a pretty fundamental player as a Steve. And then he like started improving a lot on the execution part of the game, like the nils and stuff like that. And now I think he's really well balanced. I think pretty much he's missing a lot of experience, but I am quite happy for what I did with helping him to reach to that point. Um, then for sure I said Quisam, and then from Central America, I think more Salsa and Empty Gut are the other like big hitters currently. There's definitely a lot of other players like Robot, the Snake. But Central America has definitely been improving a ton. There was definitely a point where I felt like it was Jay and I that were like on a tier above on our own. I think for now it's probably still gonna be me a little bit above the rest just because of my results and like the placements that I had. But the all of them have been inching closer. More Salsa has taken sets of me, which is really, really, really good player. And yeah, honestly, I just want us to keep improving. Honestly, that's the biggest goal for sure, because it helps me, it helps them, and eventually that's gonna be really good practice internationally.
Yeah, hopefully we can get some of those players out to some of those big events because I'm sure they can make waves. I remember like more salsa. That guy is so
He's
love to
crazy,
see him.
yeah. He's the best wolf at the matchup. Like
Yeah,
recently, I know it's online, but I've been having a really really convincing record against Danny, against Jackal, um, and that's only Loki because I just lost to Morsalsa twice. I lost to him offline, and then I lost to him in a random coin box in pools. And I was like, okay, this wolf problem has to stop. So
never again.
I just studied a ton. I really want to play him now, more salsa, because I think I have so much more of a clear idea on how to solve that matchup on neutral, you know. But the point that I'm trying to get across is that a Central American player pushed me to my limit, you know, which is amazing. Like
Yeah,
I'm really really happy that's the case for sure.
yeah, it's super sick to see. And the final thing that I want to ask you is, what are your goals for 2024, and what event are we gonna see you at next?
So honestly, for 2024, I want to say with the improvement part, the improvement segue that we had, is I think I've stopped caring about rankings. First off,
Yeah,
just because I acknowledge that I'm not in a position to become number one in rankings wise, and second, I don't think rankings necessarily translate to skill. You know, it's not like objectively, I don't know the rankings by head, but like let's say Mute says 20, and then let's say I don't know, Sky is 21, and then someone is higher above them. It doesn't necessarily mean that that player is better than them. You know,
yeah. Like
Pro-
Shattuck is like somewhere in the 40s right now in the ranking. They don't matter.
yeah, exactly, exactly, exactly. It definitely has a lot to do with opportunity cost, with like travel, with there's definitely going to be flukes in tournaments, you know, like the one that I had in Comicpalooza. So I know that I'm probably not going to be placed as highly as well as I literally have only attended two tournaments out of country. So honestly, for me right now, I just want to keep improving, man. Like my long-term goal, and ever since I started with Smash, was obviously wanted to be number one in the world. But I since transitioned to if I can take sets from the actual best players in the world, so Spargo, Akola, Sonics, Mia, I would be more than satisfied and just like live off Smash. You know, that's honestly like my entire goal for now. And then for events, um, this is my last year of university, so before I graduate. So right now, since I am low on exams, I'm probably gonna try to go to events the next month in August still. Then I'm probably gonna be a little bit busy with events or with exams, sorry. So I think I will have to plan a lot and start seeing like what I can attend. But otherwise, hopefully Smash is still really, really alive and kicking in 2025. Then I will be super free and I will just spam travel everything that I can.
Yeah, and I really think that's an important point for it's only something that applies to people that are on the rankings, but if you are good enough to be on a ranking, the ranking should mean literally nothing to you.
Yeah.
Especially for you. I don't even think you're gonna be nominated for Lumiere rank because you haven't been to a major.
Yeah,
So you'll probably
exactly.
just be an honorable mention.
Hopefully I am because I think Smash Factor is definitely going to be a major,
Oh, I
and
completely forgot about Smash Factor.
that's the cutoff point for the season. So I think I'm probably going to be in the 30s again, just because of the low amount of results
Yeah,
and the bad Comic Palooza thing. But honestly, I don't really mind. Like I said,
should.
if I know that I'm capable of winning majors nowadays. Honestly, I just
Mhm.
haven't gone to them, and I know I'm capable of beating the other players that are winning majors. So as long as I keep improving, as long as I keep doing that, and as long as I can still live off Smash, like help my family and stuff, I'm gonna be really satisfied with that for sure. And because I know eventually I'm gonna be able to do much more with being able to travel more, and especially if I get a good sponsor, that's gonna be crazy for sure.
Yeah. And pick the guy up because he is in a great spot right now. You're on such a good rate of improvement. You're already amazing. I'm really excited to
Thank you.
see what you're gonna do in the future. Is there anything that you want to shout out? Any socials, anything like that before we hit the road?
Honestly, the biggest thing if you want to help me is basically coaching. That's pretty much me helping you and you helping me to go to tournaments. You know, as usual, it's always going to be Metafy Shinymark. And otherwise, you can actually DM me if you want to like get details on the coaching or just do it outside of Metafy. It's fine. Uh, Otherwise, just keep supporting me in tournaments. If you know a guy or a big org that might be interested, please vouch for me. I'm definitely looking for
Will
a
it be a
team.
package deal?
Yeah, of course. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And pretty much, I want to thank all of you that keep supporting me, that like seeing me play. Sorry if I'm a lamer player than you would like, but trust me, you haven't been in the trenches to realize how brain dead and how bad this game. Like, it's not a bad game. It's not a bad game at all. It's really, really fun. But competing at a top level in this game requires discipline and being incredibly, incredibly lame. Especially for a character like Pikachu. Like, I would love to play Pikachu like this, the most aggressive character that I could. But it's not feasible, man. So I'm just gonna stick with consistency and actually winning the events, you know?
I mean, that's definitely the important thing at the end of the day. And all of your links will be down. We'll be sure to check them out. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we will
Thank
see
you for
you
the
all
opportunity.
next one. Bye bye.
Bye.